What if everything you thought you knew about a certain royal couple was carefully staged? What if the Instagram posts, the heart-warming family videos, the perfectly time-slap about were all part of a calculated game? Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see modern celebrity manipulation. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how some people always seem to post happy family content right after negative news breaks? It's not a coincidence. It's a strategy. And you're watching Katie play out in real time with one of the most talked about figures in recent history. So here is what happened. A respected royal commentator dropped some explosive information about family tensions. You're talking about her doctor drama, being his child, the kind of stuff that doesn't make it into glossy magazine spreads. And 10, like clockwork, within hours, boom. Instagram stories, pool videos, dancing children. Suddenly, everyone is happy and everything's perfect. Convenient timing, don't you think? Now, before we dive deep, let me be crystal clear about something. This isn't about picking sides or pushing an agenda. This is about patterns. This is about recognizing when you're being played. Because whether you love her, hate her, or so on careless, understanding media manipulation affects all of us. You're all targets of IT every single day. Let's see where this all started. A royal expert, someone who's been covering these stories for decades, goes public with claims about serious friction between a famous duchess and her mother. You're not talking about a little disagreement over dinner plans. You're talking about fundamental issues. Control, boundaries, expectations, the kind of stuff that tears families apart. According to multiple sources, the matter was being treated less like family and more like hired help. Cooking, shopping, childcare, running errands, all while being expected to drop everything at a moment's notice. Now, put yourself into shoes for a second. You're in your late 60s. You've got your own life, your own friends, your own routine. And suddenly you're being summoned constantly, expected to be on call 24/7, doing household tasks that would exhaust someone have you again. The sources paint a picture of someone who genuinely wanted to help. A mother who showed up for her daughter, who supported her through major life transitions, who was there when things got difficult. But here is a limit to everything. Right. And apparently, that limit was reached. When you're being considered and appreciated, when every visit comes with a list of demands, when here is no recognition of your own needs or dignity, eventually you say enough. And that is where it gets really interesting. The moment this information goes public, the response isn't denial. It's not a statement from representatives saying the story is false. Instead, we get content, we get imagery, we get proof of life, if you will. The matter appears in a pool with a grandchild. There are dance videos. There are multiple posts showing a happy, unified family, all dropping within hours of the negative reporting. Think about that timeline. Professional photographer or video fatigue explaining. You need good lighting, proper framing, editing, approval processes. Erroneous. Of course, you've got content sitting in the archive ready to deploy whenever needed. It's a classic PR move. When bad news hits, flood the zone with positive imagery. Distrust, redirect, create a competing narrative. Now, some people looked at that pool video and said, wait a minute. They checked the weather reports for that day. Temperatures aren't exactly swimming pool friendly, which raises an obvious question. Was that content even filmed when IT was posted? Or was IT all the material being repurposed for damage control? We can provide either way, but the suspicion alone tells you something about the level of trust people have in what here being shown. It is what makes this particularly fascinating from a media analysis perspective. This isn't the first time you've seen this exact playbook. Every single time here is negative coverage, every single time insiders speak up about what's really happening behind closed doors, the response is the same. More content, more perfectly curated glimpses into a supposedly authentic life. More strategic drops of information designed to control the narrative. And IT works. At least, IT works on some people. Because we want to believe what we see, don't we? We want to think that those smiling faces and warm embraces are genuine. We want the fairy tale to be real. But when you start paying attention to the patterns, when you notice how consistent this happens, it becomes harder to ignore what's really going on. Let's talk about the PR strategy here, because this is where things get even more calculated. Here is a specific firm that's known in Hollywood circles for what they call crisis management. Others call it the dark arts of public relations. This firm has been rehired after a string of advisors throughout Troy, and their specialty: aggressivitza unter narratives, planting stories, creating spectacles, doing whatever it takes to reshape public perception. Think about what that means. When you hire a firm known for these tactics, you're not just looking for someone to handle press releases. You're looking for warriors. People who will fight dirty if necessary. People who understand that controlling the conversation means being faster, louder, and more aggressive than your critics. It's a deliberate choice that tells you everything about the strategy going forward. And you're already seeing it play out. More stunts, more carefully choreographed moments, more slapabats designed to make critics look potty or abuse is said. It's all part of the machine. But it is the thing about machines. They're efficient, but they're not so true. Once you know what to look for, you can see the gears turning. Let's get back to the family dynamics, because this is where the story gets genuinely set. According to people close to the situation, the mother was once a regular presence in the household. She was involved with the supportive and some with the grandchildren. But now, that's reported over. The living arrangement has ended. The daily involvement has stopped, and people who know the family have noticed the change. Now, WHO would a grandma to step back from that level of involvement. The behavior sensor is boundaries. When hell becomes expectation, when super becomes obligation, when appreciation turns into entitlement, healthy people set limits. And from everything you're hearing, that's exactly what happened here. But here is another layer to this hot word examining. The language used to describe the matter in her visual content. She's called a free spirit. On the surface, that sounds affectionate, да isn't it? But according to insiders, that forsink was deliberate. Among people who know the family, it was understood as a subtle criticism. A way of saying she's not rigid enough, not controlled enough, not willing to operate on someone else's schedule with someone else's rules. That's the kind of passive-aggressive communication that tells you volumes about a relationship. When you can directly criticize someone, you use candid language. You wrap criticism in seeming praise. You signal to those who know exactly what you mean while maintaining plausible deniability to everyone else. It's manipulation dressed up as affection. And that is what really bothers me about all of this. Those children, they're growing up with our extended family. No grandmother regularly involved in their lives anymore. No aunts and uncles from either side of the family. No cousins to play with. No family gatherings or traditions connecting them to their heritage. Just parents and the event whatever famous friends happen to be around at any given moment. Children need family. They need those connections to people who left the era munsanditionale, who have known the era since birth, who represent continuity and stability. Friends come and go. Nanny and staff are employees who can live. But grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, those bonds are supposed to be permanent. And when children are deliberately isolated from those connections, it's not just a set. It's concerning. Think about what's been lost here. On one side of the family, there are siblings who have been completely cut off. Nieces and nephews who could have been primitives. On the other side, there is a grandfather who's been king of an entire nation, cousins who are growing up in palaces, aunts and uncles who could have provided connection to an extraordinary legacy. All gone, all inaccessible, all sacrificed on the altar of control. Because that's what this really comes down to, да isn't it? Control. When you can't work with people, when you can't maintain relationships, when everyone who tries to help eventually gets pushed through, here is a common denominator. And that common denominator is the inability to share power, to compromise, to accept that other people have valid perspectives and needs. You've seen this pattern play out repeatedly. Staff members leaving, advice walking through, family members being cut off, And every single time, the public explanation is that those people were the problem. They were toxic. They were Jews. They were working against her. But when the same story keeps repeating with different people in different contexts, maybe it's time to question who the actual constant is. Now, let's talk about the professional side of this message, because it's just as revealing. There was a show, a lifestyle program that was supposed to be her big comeback. Cooking, crafting, entertaining, all the things that would position her as an influencer and tastemaker. Netflix put marketing muscle behind IT. There were photo shoots and promotional campaigns and all the usual fanfare. And then, crickets. The show underperformed dramatically. Critics point IT. Audiences didn't show up. The engagement numbers were embarrassing. And now, according to multiple sources, there won't be a second season. Netflix has moved on. But instead of acknowledging reality, instead of accepting that maybe this isn't the right vehicle or the right moment, the response has been to pitch more specials. Holiday episodes. Valentine's Day content. As if doing more of what didn't work will somehow produce different results. This is classic refusal to accept failure. Rather than learning from what went wrong, rather than pivoting to something different, the strategy is to double down. To insist that success is just around the corner. To create the appearance of momentum and opportunity, even when neither actually exists. It's all about maintaining the illusion. And speaking of illusions, let's talk about the hypocrisy that's at the heart of all this. The whole premise of living royal life was privacy. Remember, it was about her escaping the fishbowl, protecting the children from intrusive media, living a normal, quiet life away from cameras and scrutiny. That was the entire justification for everything that happened. But at the reality, more personal content than ever before, more intimate family moments shared publicly, more carefully to get glimpses into private life. The children who were supposedly being protected from media exposure are now perhaps in Instagram stories and promotional content. The privacy that was so desperately needed apparently doesn't apply when here is a narrative to control or an image to sell. You can't have it both ways. You can't claim you want privacy while constantly inviting the public into your living room. You can't say you're protecting your children while using them for content. You can't complain about media intrusion while being your own most aggressive publicist. Well, you can't tell why, but people notice the contradiction. And they're noticing. The polling number is still a brutal story. Public favorability has dropped to record lows. You're not talking about a slight dip. You're talking about a sustained, significant decline in how people view her. And the harder the PR machine works, the worse it seems to get. Because people can't sense authenticity. They can't feel and hear being manipulated. And the more aggressive and calculated the image management becomes, the more it backfires. Now, I want to be fair here. Living in the public is incredibly difficult. The scrutiny is relentless. The criticism is personal and often vicious. The pressure to maintain an image while dealing with real human problems is enormous. I don't envy anyone in that position. And here is absolutely legitimate criticism to be made about how the media treats women in particular, how it here held to different standards, how it here punished for things men get away with constantly. But acknowledging those truths doesn't mean we ignore patterns of behavior. It doesn't mean we accept manipulation as justified. It doesn't mean we pretend that deliberate image crafting and truth are the same thing. You can have sympathy for someone's struggles while still calling out their actions. The two things aren't mutually exclusive. But acknowledging those truths doesn't mean we ignore patterns of behavior. It doesn't mean we accept manipulation as justified. It doesn't mean we pretend that deliberate image crafting and truth are the same thing. You can have sympathy for someone's struggles while still calling out their actions. The two things aren't mutually exclusive. It's emerging from all these reports, from all these sources, from all these incidents over years now, is a portrait of someone who struggles with relationships, who has difficulty maintaining long-term connections, who burns bridges with family, staff, colleagues, and friends with remarkable consistency, and who responds to any criticism or challenge by doubling down, hitting back, and trying to control the narrative through increasing aggressive PR tactics. That's not a sustainable strategy. You can build a meaningful life or career on a position and damage control. Eventually, people stop paying attention. Eventually, the stand stop working. Eventually, even the most loyal supporters start questioning what they're being asked to believe. And that brings us to perhaps the most troubling aspect of all this. The complete severance of family ties. Not just reducing contact or having some distance. Complete severance. A daughter reportedly not speaking to her father at all anymore. A mother stepping back from a situation that became untenable. Children growing up without ignoring their extended family on either side. That's not just a set. That's a choice. A deliberate choice that someone is making about how to structure their life and their children's lives. When every single family relationship across both sides of the family tree has been damaged or destroyed, that's not bad luck. That's not other people being difficult. That's a pattern. And patterns reveal character. Now, it is where I want to bring this full circle. Because this isn't just a story about one person or one family. This is a story about how we consume media in the modern age. About how our public figures manipulate our perceptions. About how our PR strategies exploit our dues to believe in fairy tales and happy endings. Every time you see a perfectly timed Instagram post, ask yourself what news IT might be trying to counter. Every time you see a heartwarming family video, consider whether it was filmed that day or pulled from an archive for strategic deployment. Every time you see a celebrity clapping back at critics, think about whether they're addressing the substance of criticism or just creating noise to distrust from IT. You're all susceptible to these tactics. We all want to believe what we see. But media literacy in the 21st century means being skeptical, asking questions, looking at patterns rather than isolated incidents, and recognizing when you're being played. The irony in all of this is that authenticity is what people actually crave. Real connection, genuine emotion, honest vulnerability, that's what resonates. But when everything is calculated, when every moment is targeted, when every piece of content serves a strategic purpose, authenticity becomes impossible. And people can feel that absence even if they can't always articulate it. So where does this all go from here? More of the same, probably. More strategic content drops. More aggressive PR pushes. More temperatures to control a narrative that's increasingly running away from the people trying to control it. More family drama playing out through carefully worded statements and conspicuous absences. More children growing up in isolation from extended family. But the fundamental truth remains. You can hire the best PR firms in the world. You can craft the perfect image. You can flood social media with carefully curated content. But you can't fake genuine relationships. You can PR your way into authentic human connection. And you can build a meaningful life or legacy on a foundation of manipulation and image management. At the end of the day, what matters is how you treat people. How you show up for family. How you handle criticism and setbacks. Whether you can maintain relationships over time. Whether people who know you well speak fondly of their experiences with you. And on all those measures, the story you're seeing unfold is deeply troubling. I hope, genuinely, that things improve. That relationships can be repaired. That those children get to know their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, their cousins. That the scorched earth approach to dealing with criticism gives way to something healthier and more sustainable. But hope isn't the same as expectation. And based on everything you're seeing, the patterns are only intensifying, not improving. So keep your eyes open. Keep questioning what you're shown. Keep looking for patterns rather than being distracted by individual incidents. And remember that no amount of perfect Instagram content can substitute for authentic human relationships and genuine character. If you found this analysis valuable, if it changed how you think about media manipulation and celebrity culture, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know in the comments what you think. Are we being too harsh? Are we not seeing the full picture? Or are these patterns impossible to ignore once you start paying attention? I'm here to have real conversations about difficult topics. No spine, no corporate influence, no billionaire back here telling me what I can and can't say. Just honest analysis and genuine dialogue. And the only way I can keep doing this is with your support. So subscribe, engage, share it, and let's keep hearing those important conversations together. Thanks for watching. Thanks for thinking critically. And to see you in the next one.